Hi everyone! Today we're going to be doing a sunset landscape painting, so grab your painting equipment and we'll get started. This is the sunset image that I've chosen for reference, but you can use any sky or sunset image you like. I'm going to start by adding a watered down version of a light blue that I've mixed using white and blue to get the colour that I want. The reason I've added the water is to make the paints nice and wet so they can blend together nice and easily. I've also added the tiniest bit of red to my blue to get a little bit of a purple tinge to my blue sky. I'm also adding some deeper blue to my blue sky for any of the darker areas that I can see in my reference image. Now I'm mixing a little bit of purple using some red paint and the blue paint and a little bit of white as well, just to get the tone that I want. A bit of a tip for mixing a good purple: try and aim to have your red be a cool shade of red. If you use a warm red, you will end up with a more brown looking purple. To get your colours to blend together really evenly and smoothly, it's really important that you go over the two colours that you've added to your canvas to make sure that they're blending into each other rather than just being next to each other. You should also be trying to blend your colours while the paint is still wet to make the transition between the tones much smoother. Now I'm going to be adding a little bit of red and yellow to make a warm tone orange to blend into the pink. Keep adding variations of the colours that you've already included in your sunset sky to be a nice backdrop for your clouds that you're about to add soon. An easy way to have smoothly blended colours is to use long brush strokes that go from side to side on each side of your canvas. Also try and lift the brush at the end of each stroke. Don't forget to make sure to paint right over the edges and the sides of your canvas. If you're looking at it front on, it looks much cleaner this way. To start my clouds, I'm mixing a really light orange. So a bit of red, a bit of yellow, more yellow in this orange, and lots of white. This is just to mark out where I'd like the clouds to be. And the light colour indicates where the sun would be hitting these clouds first. To make the clouds look nice and fluffy, I'm using just a little dabbing motion to make my clouds look nice and soft. When I continue to mix the orange, you'll also notice that I'm not mixing the colours all the way through. This allows me to have more than one colour on my brush at the same time. So in this step, I've got a little bit of that light orange-yellow tone on my brush, as well as a little bit of pink. For this section, I'm adding some of that red to indicate the horizon line. So that's a line that splits the sky from the ground or from the earth. And when you see those really bright, rich sunsets, that's sort of the colour that I'm going for there, right at the bottom where the sun's hitting or just going over the horizon. For this part, adding the sun, I'm adding a really watered down orange shade with a little bit of white and a little bit more yellow added in as well, and just flicking my paintbrush out to make those sun rays. For this part, you want to make sure that the orange that you've used for the sun rays is really watered down. That allows it to be transparent so you can see the sky from beneath the sun rays too. As your paint is drying, you want to gradually build up that area where the sun would be coming from by adding increasingly light tones in that area. You will only be able to do this as your paint is drying, or else the colours will just blend together. Keep gradually adding these lighter layers until you have a nice backdrop for your sun, and you can paint that straight on top and it won't blend in. You can also add some more sun rays on top to make them more prominent too. Now that my clouds have dried up a little bit, I'm going to revisit that area using a sort of a deep purple, and this is to indicate where the shadows would be cast from the clouds. When adding shadow to any area of a painting, always be aware of where the light source should be coming from, and your shadows will appear on the opposite side. So in this example, the sun's coming from the middle of my painting, so the shadows will be all on the opposite sides of those clouds. You might even decide that you want to add some additional clouds here as well. There's no strict way to do this. Every sky that you look at is going to be really different, so your painting is going to be quite different too, I guess. When you're mixing this purple or this shadow tone for your clouds, you don't have to mix that exact same tone each time. In fact, if you do have a bit of a variation, it's a little bit lighter or it's a little bit deeper when you're adding this to the clouds, it actually will give your clouds a little bit more depth. If, like me, you think you've made your clouds a little bit dark, you can revisit them again and come back when the paint's dried a little bit to add those lighter tones back in. I think that's one of the best things about painting. If there's a section that you're not entirely happy with, you can just paint over it and have another go and to build it up until it looks how you want it to look. For this part, I've actually just picked up a clean dried brush to go over any bits of wet paint that I'd like to blend in a little bit more. If you're having trouble blending colours, that's a really easy way to blend colours into each other smoothly by just using a brand new clean brush. Just decided to add a couple more sun rays, just blending them out just to brighten up the area around the sun. Typically for any acrylic painting, you paint from the furthest thing away, gradually building it up to the closest thing nearby. So now that the sky's all finished, I'm going to start by doing some of the foreground. Just going to be doing a little silhouette landscape. Now that that area beneath the sun is all dry, I'm just going to be doing some reflections off the water underneath the sun. Water reflections typically mimic the sky, just in terms of the colours. They can be a little bit more blended out when you see them on the water. So I'm going to mimic that colour that's right up close to the sun to be really light yellow, and as it moves further away from the sun, I'm going to make it a mirror image of the blue sky that you would see further away. Also, all of the areas that I'm painting on the water, I'm using a horizontal stroke, going side to side, blending those colours in. You can add any surface texture to your silhouette landscapes that you'd like. I've just done a couple of rocks, a little bit of grass, and now I'm working on a tree. When you're painting things that are small, it's important that you are also using a small brush to give you a bit more control over the shapes. You'll also notice that the trees that I'd like to look a bit closer, I've made larger, and the ones that I want to look further away in the distance are gradually getting smaller as I move further away. Now for these final sections, just adding some little finishing touches, just some shadows of leaves in my silhouette, and you can add any other details here that you'd like. And there you go, that's your finished landscape. Hope you've enjoyed painting with me. I'll see you next time.